Hiya, it's Jo here of Mummy versus AAC, not being able to work out where to put. I have been thinking a lot about what kind of things I want to put out on the blog and on social media about Mummy versus AAC, and what are the messages that I really want to share. So I was thinking, well, do I want to kind of appeal to therapists and give them ideas from a therapist and parent perspective, or do I want to support parents, or do I just want to put out something really personal about my experience? And what I've decided is it's probably a bit of all of those things, depending on what I've been reading, what I've been doing, and what I'm feeling into, and how I'm feeling at any time. So this video, I hope, is useful for parents. It's a little video about kind of getting started with AAC. It's not about what AAC is. There are things on my blog about that, and you can, if you Google what is AAC, you're going to get a lot of information. There are some fantastic websites out there. Communication Matters have a really good summary about what AAC is and all the different things around it. So really, this video is for, I'm hoping might be useful for maybe parents who have children who don't currently use AAC, or who maybe have some support in school but not so much at home. I think often therapy models mean that you know that something's happening in school but you're not really sure what that is at home. Or if you're struggling to access early intervention services like we did. I was all geared up really to do some AAC because I knew what it was. The prognosis for my daughter's condition is that 80% of people that we know who have Emanuel syndrome don't develop verbal speech. And for those who do, whether it's intelligible or useful speech is variable. So I kind of knew quite early that AAC, augmentative and alternative communication, in some way was going to be something she would need. And I'd hoped that as soon as we got a speech and language therapist, I had this beautiful dream in my head about what that would look like and that we'd work together and it would be so exciting. But actually the therapist that we were initially allocated didn't really know about AAC. And so that was a bit of a shame, really. So I just decided to crack on, even though I'd said over and over again, I am not going to be a speech and language therapist. I'm not going to be her speech and language therapist. I did just decide to crack on, gathered information where I could, spoke to therapists who I knew about AAC, and just tried to gather as much information as possible so that we could start on something. And when I look back now, and maybe it's a complete other post, what we started on might, certainly before I got the advice from therapists, might not have been that great. I think that's for another day. So what I want to provide this morning, it's morning here as I'm recording, is some resources that I think would be useful, and letting you know what resources are out there to help implement AAC. So these are my 5 top things that I think are going to help with AAC. The first resource that I think parents need is to recognise that you are one of the best resources out there. So you know your child really well. You know how they already communicate. You probably know all those little things like, oh, the cry sounds a bit like that. That probably means that they need changing. Or, oh, when it sounds a bit like that though, that probably means that they're hungry. And, oh, that means they're in pain. Or, oh, I can tell that they're looking over there. And I know that they love bubbles. And I know that they hate loud noises. And they get really excited when the TV's on. You have so much information about your child and so much knowledge. You also have knowledge about your family, your capacity, and what you think you can take on. And I think that's really important. I've been listening to some really great stuff on the Loma podcast, which I'll flag up in notes or somewhere, about that sometimes it's okay to say, hey, we're not doing that therapy anymore. I think it's time to stop, or we're going to do less. And I think that's really important to know as well. You are the best judge of what is best for you and your family. And for me, ASE and the principles that I'm going to talk about in a little while, when I learned about them, I just thought, wow, that suits me, that fits my family, that is a way that I would like to support my little girl. And so that's what we did, along with Daddy versus AAC, who has also learnt a lot during this time. Okay, so the first resource that I want you to remember, you are the best resource. The next resource, if you can get them, are therapists. In early intervention, ideally a speech and language therapist. If your child has motor and sensory challenges, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, teachers of the visually impaired, all these people who kind of cross your doors and maybe come and do an assessment, they are all going to have really valuable information to feed into how you might implement AAC. I will say as well, from a speech and language therapy point of view, you don't need to have the most experienced, published author of books about AAC to be your therapist. You need somebody who knows how to listen, who can reflect on their own work and learn with you, and is enthusiastic about AAC. And I think they're the prerequisites you need in a therapist. That's what your therapist needs to bring to the table. So they might be newly qualified, but absolutely love working with children, have a really good rapport with your child, and be really keen to learn. And actually, that's still going to make for a really successful team. Okay. So they're two kind of person-based resources, but I did want to share with you some really practical things. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you about core vocabulary or about how to do things, but I'm going to flag up some resources that I found really useful. So there's two that I found really useful, and one that I wish I'd known about sooner. I don't even know if it was published actually like 4 or 5 years ago when we were starting this, but that's what I'm going to share with you today. So the very first AAC that we used was a board, I think, that we got through the playgroup, through the therapists who work in the organisation where Lucy went to a parent group. But then I very quickly stumbled upon the ACE Centre. They're a charity who support AAC. I think they've got 2 centres in the UK. I know one of them's up in Oldham, up north, where we are. And although I know some listeners might think that like Yorkshire and the Manchester M62 corridor isn't the north at all. And they have the ACE Centre have brilliant resources. Okay, so I just want to show you what I accessed and flag up a couple of other things for you on here. So I thought it might be useful if I showed you where to find things as well, because the ACE Centre cover so much about AAC. They work with adults with neurological conditions and degenerative conditions. They also work with schools and children. So what we're talking about here is probably young children who are just starting out with AAC and children with kind of like developmental difficulties. So if I show you what we use. So if we go into the menu, they have a great Getting Started section, and we've got Getting Started with, hold on. Oh yeah, here we are. I think they're just updating their website, and I think they've changed it since yesterday. But what I wanted to get to for you was these ebooks resources to get started. Let's have a look at them all. So they have a collection of ebooks about getting started, and here we go. I'm sure you're all confident internet users, so you'll be able to just dig around in here anyway and find what you need. But the book that I downloaded that I found really useful, because we were looking with my little girl at using low using a symbol-based system is this book here, Getting Started with AAC Using Low-Tech Symbol-Based Systems with Children. And you can download that for free from this website. I think usually you have to kind of log in to do that, but it is downloadable. Okay, so that's one of the resources. And if we go back up here, so once you've had a good read of that book and enjoyed that, we've got, again, oh, I went to the wrong thing. So rather than getting started, you can get to those resources here. And then down at the bottom, we've got symbol resources. And there are just hundreds of symbol charts for different activities in different formats. So we've got some with just a few symbols, some with lots and lots of symbols. I was past them actually. So if you can see on the chat, I've just realised that I don't think you can see my pointer waving, but I hope what I want to talk about is green screen. It looks like it is. There are symbols with different levels of contrast, so if your child has a visual impairment, that might be something you want to think about, or different layouts depending on what access is going to look like. And there are some resources on there as well about getting started with AAC when pointing is difficult. So if your child has motor difficulties and can't easily just do a nice little point to the symbol that they've identified, there's advice on there as well. But again, if you've managed to build a bit of a team and you've got an OT involved, or teacher with visually impaired, all those people might be able to help. Because once you delve into vision and adapting for that, actually there are loads of different options. Okay, so the next resource that I want to show you, this is the one that I wish I'd seen sooner. So I don't know how long it's been around. Actually, like I say, it might be fairly recent. But this is Project Core. And this is from, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom because I can never remember where this is. So it's the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I think it's North Carolina. The Centre for Literacy and Disability Studies. And they have built this beautiful research-based resource about starting out with core vocabulary. I can sum that up in one sentence. Core vocabulary are all the words that we use lots and lots and lots in life. So they're things like want, like, help, stop, go, look, big, little. So they're words that can be used in lots and lots of different situations. That's all I'm going to say about it, because if you have a look on the Project Core website and go into professional development, they have these amazing little modules, and they take like 20 minutes to half an hour, if that, each to complete. And it's just a really brilliant overview of core vocabulary and how you can use it and how you can use symbol boards. They also have a quick start guide that you can have a look at that talks about the steps to go through. And it does have a nice little tool for looking at different kinds of core board. So it might not be that just a printed out core board with all of the core words on is the right thing for your child, and actually that tool will help you to work that out. Okay, and then you've got resources on this website and on the ACE Centre website that I just talked about. Okay, so their numbers. So number one in my resource list was yourself. Number two was therapists, teachers, people who are enthusiastic and skilled in AAC who can help you work through this journey. Number three was the ACE Centre. And number four was Project Core. And number five is meeting other people. Okay, so for me, that has been the charity One Voice. I've known about One Voice for a while, but we didn't quite get going with them until lockdown, really. And I've had some absolutely brilliant virtual Zoom sessions. I'm also on a parent group on there. And so they are all people who use AAC and families of people who use AAC, just getting together for support. And they do various events and activities once we're all meeting up. I know they're putting plans in place for a weekend next year, and they've had some face-to-face activities already. So it's a great charity to get involved in, get your name down. Membership's free, as it says there on this lovely picture of a couple of people having a good chat using their AAC. Looks like somebody's about to be interrupted, I think. And you just fill in your details, and you'll be given access to the resources that are available through One Voice. Where you live, you might have a different parent forum, you might have support, diagnosis-specific support. So I know Angelman UK and REP UK have masses of support for families using AAC. So there's lots out there, but do build that network, because it's going to be invaluable in helping you with that. Okay. So they're my 5 top resources for families. Yourselves, your therapists, the ACE Centre, Project Core, and One Voice. If you're starting out with AAC. I hope you found that useful, and I'm going to upload that to YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. So please comment if you have anything to say or ask. And when I think of what I fancy putting out next, I'll put something out there. All right, cheers. Thanks, bye everybody.